everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. I'm your host today, Kayla, and I am joined with Crystal and Rachel, two of our incredible teammates on the Hi-Fi team. And today we are jumping into a brand new truth. So this April, we are talking about how kids are set apart. So we're looking at the simple truth, I am set apart for kids, and for preschool, the way that we say that is God helps me obey. And so we're really looking this whole month about what it looks like to live set apart, to live for God, to be obedient to the Lord and what he says and how he wants us to live. And so we have some incredible weeks coming up. As you know, this week is Easter, and we are so excited. We're so excited to celebrate Easter. I know, leaders, you have been prepping and planning and doing events and all kinds of things leading up to this week. And we're just so grateful for you. And so as we jump in today, Crystal and Rachel, we are going to set our minds towards Easter. And I'm curious, as we get started, did you have like a favorite Easter tradition growing up? And bonus question, do you still do that thing today? So, kids have so many fun Easter traditions, and I'd love to hear from you guys of your childhood. Like, what were some of those fun Easter traditions that you had, and has it carried over? Is it something you do with your kids or your family, or still practice?
Yeah. So, my family growing up, my dad is a pastor. And so, Easter was always a little bit hectic, with lots of things going on. But one thing my family was really, committed to that I really appreciated was inviting anyone over for a meal after church. So, always having an open door to whomever needed a place to celebrate and to be with some family. And so that's something we still do. Our family hosts an Easter meal on Easter Sunday after church for anyone in our area who doesn't have family in the area like we do. And so we've kind of continued that tradition. So college students or international students or just anyone who doesn't have a place to land, we invite in. And so not exactly the same from childhood, but with the same spirit.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I love that your boys and your family get to watch that as you live that out and emulate that throughout your community. That's so cool. I love that. Crystal, what about you? Any traditions that come to mind?
My answer is going to sound so much more so much less awesome than Rachel's, I feel like, but it's fine. I'm still going to share it. So as a kid, I would have said probably that it was like my parents treated Easter almost like a second Christmas and that we got tons of presents. Not the point of Easter, but as a kid, I loved it. But looking back, one of the things that I think is the most fond memory that I have, I was born in 1980. I'm an 80s baby. My mom and I would wear matching dresses every Easter. Either she would make them or she would find someone else to make them. And I look at pictures and the fabric looks like curtains, like it's these floral patterns and these pastels. But I loved wearing the same dress as my mom. I thought it was the coolest thing. Obviously, I don't do it now. I can't even picture my mom and I ever wearing anything that looks similar at this age. But now that I'm saying it, I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should get like matching scarves or something that we could wear to church. Because we tend to do holidays at church together, even though we go to separate churches. And it might be kind of fun to have a little throwback to when we used to be matchy on Easter.
That's so fun. I love it. As you were talking, I have this picture in my mind of baby girl Kayla in this curtain looking floral bright yellow dress. Also with really, really, really curly hair. Not because I have curly hair. My hair is straight as a board. But because I used to sleep in these sponge rollers for special occasions like Easter. And I would my hair would be so wet and then I would get it all sponge curled and sleep on it. And for 5 to 10 minutes at church, I looked like, Susie Q with the cutest little curly hair. And then it was gone. It was just a fluff ball. It was terrible. So Yeah, those are fun childhood memories I do not repeat. So they stay in the past.
Yes.
But it's always fun to think about Easter and just the different traditions that we have and bring. And as we're talking about this month and leaning into what it looks like to live set apart, this is a month where we kind of switch things up sometimes, and that's intentional. It's on purpose because we really want the message and the heart of what we're teaching this month to connect to preschoolers and to kids. And so we are going to be taking a little bit different approach this month with I Am Set Apart and God Helps Me Obey. So, listeners, the first thing you'll notice is that your theme verse is different. So, preschool theme verse is You are my friends if you do what I command you, from John 15:14. And that's really intentional because that really leans into God helps me obey. And then for kids, we are looking at John 6:38, which is, For I have come down from heaven not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And so this month, we are going to be looking about what it really looks like to live out practically how to be set apart, how to be God's people who are chasing after him and pursuing him and being obedient to him. And so, as we take that different approach, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of different Bible stories. So, be sure to tune in. Next week, we're going to actually have 2 episodes, one for preschool and one for kids. We really want to give them their own space because they're covering different parts of the Bible. And so, I'm going to let Crystal and Rachel kind of talk us through that a little bit. So, Rachel, can you share a little bit more about the different Bible stories that are going to be coming up this April? Why are they different? How does it lean into preschool? And then Crystal, same with kids. If you'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
the Bible passages that kids are going to be going over, and then how that connects to those main ideas and how they're different, but how they're really both purposeful in teaching age appropriate content to these 2 age groups.
Yeah. So in preschool, one thing that's important to mention, I think, is that we're going to have the same main idea between kids and preschool
Mm-hmm.
for these 2 weeks that are different, but we will have different Bible stories. So for week 2 in preschool, our main idea is God helps me with my thoughts. And so we're talking about how we can obey God and think, and have him help us with our thoughts and the things we think. And so we're going to be in the Old Testament where kids is in the New, and we're going to be looking at Solomon. And so our Bible story is called Wise King Solomon. And we're learning about how Solomon asked God to give him wisdom. And so he wanted to learn to live in a way that pleased God and honored God every day. And so that wisdom helped Solomon follow and obey God. And so we thought that Bible story for preschoolers, leaning a little more into the narrative space, was a little more concrete for teaching this main idea and the simple truth. And then on week 4, we are again doing the same main idea. God helps me with my actions. And in the Old Testament, we're learning about Moses and Pharaoh, because again, leaning into narrative with this concept of obedience just seemed like a better fit for preschoolers. And so we're going to be learning how God helped Moses obey him, and God told Moses what to do and Moses obeyed. But then on the flip side, we're going to see Pharaoh making the wrong choices and not obeying God. So in this narrative, we get to see the consequences of Pharaoh's actions for not obeying, and we get to see Moses being obedient. And so we thought that was just a good fit for talking about obeying God with our actions, getting to see both sides of that in the Bible story, and getting to look at it in a little more concrete way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Crystal, talk us through kids. Can we expect this month?
Well, first off, I think it's kind of cool because users are going to kind of get to see a little peek behind the curtain, as Jeremy likes to say, in how we prayerfully select even the Bible stories that we're going to be doing every single week. And when we were all praying over this and reading through the Bible and discussing things, one of the things we mentioned is that, man, there is such good teaching in the New Testament regarding this. But we also know that preschoolers are just at the place where they're developing some of these foundational understandings about who God is. And oftentimes it's more age appropriate for preschool to teach those things through narrative stories versus some of these direct teachings that we have in the New Testament. And so we thought, you know what, this is a great place that we can teach the same concept to preschoolers and kids. Like Rachel mentioned, week 2, it's going to be all about thoughts. Week 4 is going to be all about actions. But kids is actually going to be doing Bible stories from the New Testament. And so as we get to talk about how God cares about our thoughts, we're going to be looking at First Peter 1. And this is kind of Peter exhorting people to say that your thoughts are what change your actions. And I love that for kids because it's not just a matter of changing your like being set apart on the outside by following a list of rules and acting the way that you're quote unquote supposed to act, but it starts with our thoughts. It starts with what's inside. And so again, that's a concept that is a little bit deeper, and so that's why we feel like it's more appropriate for kids than for preschool. And then kind of the same thing when it comes to week 4, we're actually going to be looking at Philippians chapter 2. And as we talk, it's a great opportunity for us to talk about humility, teaching about following the example of Jesus, just kind of some bigger concepts that, again, we know that might not necessarily preschoolers be age ready to hear, but we feel like kids are. And so I think it'll be great. And even if families have preschoolers and kids, while they may be talking about different Bible stories in those weeks, they will still be talking about the same main idea. And again, it's this idea about God really helping us and caring about what is going on in the inside. That is what changes what happens on the outside when we obey God and when we live set apart.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you both for walking us through that. I know that was kind of a flyby overview. So, listeners, if you're like, hey, I thought I was tuning in here to talk about Easter, what are we doing here? Thank you for indulging us. We really just want to do our best to prepare you for what is coming in the month ahead. And there are a couple of differences. So, we want to make sure that you are aware of that, you know what's going on. And you're able to kind of understand the why behind those differences as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to Easter. So you guys know, with Hi-Fi and this content, we are culturally aware of what's going on. And that means a couple different things. Whenever there are things that are happening in the world that we feel like leaders may need some extra support in, maybe a crisis or something that's going on, we always want to be able to come alongside you and support you in those ways. And so we provide things at the last minute when those kinds of big moments come along. We add things to your advanced planning and your leader guides. And we announce those things on Facebook so you guys can feel supported and prepared as you enter into potential conversations with preschoolers or kids. But another way that we're culturally aware is just being really aware of our calendar. And
Mm-hmm.
so things like, always celebrating Easter on Easter, and we always celebrate Palm Sunday the week before. Always celebrating Christmas. The full month of December is when we celebrate Christmas. Getting to provide some extra activities for fun things like Mother's Day coming up and Father's Day. So just always wanting to be culturally aware and just really sensitive to the calendar and what's going on, and how we as a team can best support you as the ministry leader, as you are just leading and guiding your kids ministry to lean into these really, really fun opportunities. So this week we're talking Easter and we're so excited about it. And so, Crystal, I'd love for you to kind of walk us through how does Easter actually invite us to live set apart? And so, as we're culturally sensitive, we're going to talk about crucifixion and resurrection and
Mm-hmm.
celebrating the resurrection of Jesus on Easter. And also, it's nestled in this truth about what it looks like to be someone who lives set apart. So, how did those things jive together? How do we really understand how this story helps us really live in ways that we can be set apart?
This is such a fun connection, I think. Personally, I can't think of a better way to start this conversation around obeying God and living set apart, because Easter, really, this is such a great time to talk about who Jesus is, why he came, and the fact that his death and resurrection are what have made the way for us to have a forever relationship with God and be who God created us to be, which really is the heart of Hi Fi, of course. So, when we want to talk about obedience to God and his commands, when we want to talk about living set apart by obeying the scriptures, we never ever want to teach it as a morality thing. We don't ever want to teach obedience and living set apart as, here is a list of the things you're supposed to do. Here is a list of the things that you're not supposed to do. So just do what you're supposed to do and don't do what you're not supposed to do, and you'll be good. Like, the heart of obedience and the heart of living set apart comes from a relationship with God through Jesus. We would actually never ever want a preschooler or kid to see a list of actions, to see a list of attitudes, to see a list of commands and say, it is your job to follow these. We want it to be, when you love and follow God, you actually delight to follow him. You delight to live set apart. He is changing you from the inside out, and that is why you obey. He is changing you from the inside out, and that's what causes you to live set apart. And so this is the perfect starting point for having this discussion. And honestly, it will come up every single week that the reason that we do this is not just because we're trying to be really good, not because we're trying to impress God, but because we genuinely love him and want to enjoy a relationship with him. Well, how do we even get to that point? It's Easter. It's knowing who Jesus is. It's believing and trusting that he is the way to a relationship with a father. And when we have taken that step of faith to trust and follow Jesus, then we get to talk about, okay, now that you love him and follow him, let's talk about what changes in our lives. Let's talk about how we live out our faith. And so that's why we felt like this was totally, totally appropriate to talk about Easter within this truth, because we obey God and we live set apart because of who Jesus is, because the fact that he died for our sins and he rose again, and he is the King and the Lord of our lives. And so it's going to be a great, great week as we celebrate Easter. And prayerfully, hopefully, there will be some kids who will want to know more. Like, tell me more about this, Jesus. Tell me more about a relationship, what a relationship with God looks like. So yeah, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Easter really it's the cornerstone of our faith, right? I'm
Yeah.
reminded of what Paul says in how, like, if Jesus didn't die and rise again, like, our faith is nothing, And
Mm-hmm.
so this really is the heartbeat of our faith, and why we believe what we believe and who we put our faith in. And so we're excited about the opportunity to provide this content for you as leaders to be able to teach and share about how this is where everything starts, is
Mm-hmm.
in the death and the burial and the resurrection of Jesus. And this is where our hope is. This is even why we can live set apart lives, is because of Jesus, because of the resurrection. So we're so excited for you and for this upcoming week, and how the Lord is going to use this time in the life of your ministry and your kids and your preschoolers. All right, so as we're talking about Easter, we know that there are lots of people who often come to church on Easter. Some of them could be new to your church, or maybe haven't been here in a little bit. And so, Rachel, I would love for you, just as we're stepping into this week, can you help us kind of think through some ways that we as leaders can prepare for this influx of new visitors? What are some things that we can do to make them feel welcome, make them feel connected, and just kind of lean into that opportunity a little bit this week?
Yeah. First of all, after hearing Crystal, I am so pumped for Easter. I'm so excited. That gave me so much energy listening to your answer, Crystal. Um, but I think Easter is such an incredible time to meet new families, to reconnect with people you maybe haven't seen for a while. And we all know that um, Easter takes a little more planning and a little more lift, making sure you have the volunteers where you need,
Mm-hmm.
having extra volunteers, staffing spaces where maybe you haven't been staffing for a while because the numbers are going to be larger. And so the first thing to practically think through is, do I have who I need where I need them? That way you
Mm.
aren't thinking about what's missing or what's going wrong. You can be focusing on welcoming and connecting with the people that you see. And so the first step is to think through, where do we need extra people? Where might we have holes? And where can we fill those spots so that we're ready for all the people who are coming in, so we don't feel stressed out by an influx of people,
Mm-hmm.
but instead we say, we are ready. We have a spot for you. And we don't let that nervous energy about, oh, what are we going to do, rub off when we meet people and
Yes.
steal the joy away from the day. And so the second thing is extravagant welcome. As people come into our churches and our ministries on Easter Sunday, we want to welcome them well. We want them to know that we see them. We're excited that
Mm-hmm.
they're there, and that it's going to be a really
Mm-hmm.
special day. And we're honored that they chose to spend it with us. And so we want to think through, how can we welcome families? How can we welcome children? How can we really roll out the red carpet and make them feel like they are wanted in our ministries and in our churches? But the next thing is connection, because sometimes in the midst of just making a really big welcome, we forget to actually connect with people. And so we want to
Mm.
make sure that we're learning people's names, we're saying people's names, we're looking for things to tell families about their children that came today. Like, wow, I was so glad Crystal was here today. During our connect time, she played this game, and it was really neat to see her meet a new friend. Or, look for ways to make that connection with families, to be able to tell them, I see your child, I see you, and they connected here.
Mm.
Look for ways to help children meet each other so that they know, oh, I have a friend in Kayla in my class, and I want to go back next week because she'll be looking for me. So learn names, do connect time activities. Um, Spend time talking to those kids and really build a connection, because sometimes we think about welcome just being, hello, I'm so glad you're here, and meeting them at the door. But connection goes so much deeper. And so we want to be
Mm-hmm.
looking for ways to build connection and to make um, those connections in such a way that kids have made friends. They know their leader's name, their leader knows their name, and next week they want to come. And they may not even feel nervous because they feel like, oh, I'm going back to friends. I'm going back to people
Mm-hmm.
who know me, instead of a place where everyone's a stranger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Rachel. Well, listeners, thank you for joining us on our training podcast today. We're really grateful for you and excited about what this week ahead means, and just how we get to celebrate Easter together, how we get to celebrate our risen Savior and be reminded of the hope that we have in Jesus. So as you head into your week, please remember that real connection changes everything, and true belonging truly starts with us. We're grateful for you. We're grateful you're part of this team, and we can't wait to keep growing together.